This is Tyler, your antisocial critic and the host of the AntiSocial Network, your number one source for anachronistic conversations online. Come join us each week to hear opinions from some of the best voices discussing entertainment, politics, religion, and modern life on the internet today, most of which you've never heard of, but I have. This week we're joined by the passionate Mrs. T with Tolkien. She's a blogger, a journal salesperson, and possibly the number one Tolkien fan on Twitter, with about 26,000 followers and a rather large Discord and discussion community. How's it going?
It's good. How are you doing?
A little groggy. It's early in Central Time, but, well, actually it's not. It's 9 a.m. I'm just degenerate and lazy, so... But, Unfortunately, you live on the Eastern Time, so you get it better than I do. So you got an extra hour of sleep on me right now.
It's true. Well, I did have to wake up at 6 a.m. to take my kids to school, so I didn't actually.
Oops, downside of that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Is this their first week or?
So preschool starts later than regular school, so it's for some of them it's their second week, for some of them it's their third. So we are getting the hang of it. Slowly.
Are they all still preschoolers, or how old are they?
Oh, no. I've got one in preschool, and then one in kindergarten, and one in third grade. And then I also have a toddler at home, too.
Oh, man, that's one of every age. That's...
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yep.
But, yeah, so you've been how long have you been doing everything you do online for?
I think I started Tea with Tolkien in 2017. I'm almost positive. I think I started the Twitter account in February of that year, but it was kind of slow to start. First, we started with a Facebook group, and then it kind of, I learned that I hate Facebook, and so it kind of, nothing against Facebook, I just hate being on it. It stresses me out. So after that, it kind of morphed many times into what it is now, so...
What would you describe what you do now? Because it seems like there's a lot to everything you're doing online.
I feel like the main thing that I do is just build community. So I call Tea with Tolkien a community inspired by the works and faith of Tolkien. So the main thing I do is just kind of facilitate other people getting to know each other or being able to come somewhere to talk about Tolkien in kind of an environment where you are allowed to bring up his faith, because I know in a lot of groups or like discussions, a lot of the times people shy away from stuff like that because they want to keep it more, I don't know, like sanitized. But I feel like in our group, it's really important to me that we can talk about Tolkien and his works with the perspective of his own Catholic faith. And so I think that's what sets us apart. And that's like the main thing that I do. Other than that, I'm online all the time, just hanging out, talking to people, making jokes, stuff like that.
That was one of my questions in general. Did you consider your work primarily as a fandom tool or as a ministry tool? It seems like it's kind of a little bit of both.
I feel like I don't know. It feels a little too bold to call it a ministry. I would hope that it would have the effect of a ministry, but I don't know if I would. Like, I don't know, it feels a little bit like too much to call it that, but I would hope that it would be kind of maybe someday.
I guess that's true. I mean, I work with a lot of like geeky Protestant groups that do a lot of like trying to connect people, trying to connect nerds with the gospel, and they tend to call literally everything they do a ministry. So they'll do like video game reviews and be like, "We're doing it for God, man."
Yeah, well, and I feel like I do feel like my main purpose with Tea with Tolkien is to kind of encourage people to read Tolkien, because I feel like the more you read Tolkien, the easier it is to understand a lot of the truths of Christianity. And I think that Tolkien, his works can be a pathway towards the truth of Christianity. But I don't ever want to feel like I'm like pushing it in anyone's face. And it's not like the only people in my community are Christians. There are lots of people who aren't. Really, all I tell them when they join is that you need to be respectful of Christianity. It's totally fine if you're not into it, if you don't believe in it at all. I want our community to be a place where anyone feels welcome, but that's kind of just like we are inspired by Tolkien's faith. And so that's kind of like the basis for our community, but it's not the whole thing, if that makes sense.
Sure. How did you? I guess that kind of leads back to kind of Tolkien himself. How did you kind of fall in with him so deeply that you're running a Tolkien-themed Twitter account? And I should mention a tea-themed Twitter account, which I did come prepared for. So.
Oh wow, that's amazing! What kind of tea are you drinking?
It's not nothing special. It's just a Bigelow lemon tea. So.
Wow, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
So I got really into Tolkien when the movies came out. My parents never introduced me to anything like that because I was maybe like 9 or 10 when the first movie came out. So I didn't really get a chance to see Middle Earth before it was on the big screen, which is fine with me because I think the movies are great. So my dad was actually given a copy of The Fellowship of the Ring on DVD, and my dad is more of a Star Wars guy. He's more of a sci-fi. He's not into fantasy, and so he was kind of like, well, I don't really want this movie that he got for his birthday. So then I was like, hey, I want to check this out. So I watched it and just immediately was obsessed. And I was that nerdy kid in junior high who was like writing my name in Elvish all over everything, and I didn't have a lot of friends. But so that's really how I got into Tolkien. I was just a big nerd. And once I realized, as my husband and I kind of went through this journey of becoming Catholic because we were both raised Protestant, and realizing that Tolkien was Catholic was kind of a really big moment in my conversion, because up until that point in my life, I hadn't known any Catholics. And even though I didn't know Tolkien personally, it felt like he was someone I really respected. And when I see him, I think, like, this is a guy who gets it, and he knows how the world works, and he understands truth. And so after I realized that Tolkien was Catholic, that kind of prompted me to look into it a little bit more seriously. So I feel like he just played such an important role in such an important thing in my life, because becoming Catholic was huge for me. And so I don't know. I just feel like Tolkien has kind of been like a thread throughout my life that I didn't notice at first when I was younger. I just was like, oh, I like these movies. Then I thought, I like these books. But now it's just like I kind of see everything through this like Middle Earth tinted lens. And the world makes so much more sense to me. And I feel like maybe from an outside perspective, that sounds like ridiculous. But that's kind of how I got to where I am now, I guess.
I mean, I've heard that from a lot of Catholics, that Tolkien tends to like kind of affect the way they view the world and kind of find a way to frame it. I haven't necessarily seen it that way. I mean, obviously, I'm Protestant, so I haven't had that lens quite as clearly. But everyone I've talked to who is Catholic seems to have that shared experience.
Yeah, I just feel like I don't know. It's just he feels like a very big deal to me, and his letters and just the way that you can see different. It's not symbolism or allegory. It's just like the way that different things in the Lord of the Rings kind of reflect his own faith. I just feel like it's just really meant a lot to me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of online literary writing, and one of the things I'm terrified of is the prospect of actually trying to write anything about Tolkien, because I know I'm going to find some way to mess it up, because it's just, there's so much to it. Like I think of like at some point I'm going to have to write about Lord of the Rings, and I feel the same way about doing that as I do about writing about Dante, just because I know everything. There's so many facets to the material and so many ways you can approach it, and like so many amazing individual just scenes and lines of dialogue that absolutely reflect on the entire universe he creates, that it feels wrong just to summarize it. It's almost more of just a feel in his books than anything, because like you said, he doesn't engage in direct allegory. It's all about kind of capturing some sort of emotional understanding of what it means to be, i.e. human, more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then I feel like, especially when writing about Tolkien, there's a certain group of Tolkien fan who is smarter than everyone, and they let you know about it, and you can't please them no matter what. Like, no matter how smart I am, I will never make them happy. And so kind of just letting go of that desire to appease that kind of Tolkien fan has been very helpful for me when writing about Tolkien, because you're never going to be as smart as Tolkien, and you're never going to be as smart as the Tolkien scholars who have written books and books and books on him. But I do feel like Tolkien can be for everyone. So it's not like you should feel like you can't, because anyone, I think, can take things away from him and teach people new things, kind of, because everyone comes from a different perspective.
True. So you're part of what you do online is obviously the book club. What are you doing right now with that?
We are starting The Lord of the Rings in September. I don't know when this episode will come out, so it might have started already. But we are doing The Lord of the Rings, and we are doing one book per month. So The Lord of the Rings is 6 books, which have been split into 3. Well, it's really one book split into 6 books that have then been arranged into 3 books, which is very confusing to a lot of people. So basically, we're reading the first half of the Fellowship of the Ring in September, and then in October, the second half, and so on, until March, I think, is when we have our like grand finale discussion party kind of thing.
Sure. What's your experience been like that, kind of going through the book in a mass discussion sort of way?
Well, we haven't done The Lord of the Rings in a while. We did Silmarillion in January through March, or January through May, and that was really fun for me because I was learning so much. This was the first time that I had felt like I really had a solid grasp on the Silmarillion, because this was like the 4th time I've read it, but I've been making notes for the book club so that I could do my podcast episodes on it, and I feel like through that, and then through the discussion that has been going on in our Discord server, I've like really, really got it. So that's been really fun. And it's just really cool to see other people's perspectives, and also just like being there when someone is able to finish the book for the first time, because I know a lot of people really struggle with it and maybe feel like, I don't know, like I have a friend who someone told her one day, like, you'll never be able to read the Silmarillion, you're not smart enough, and she like was able to read it. And it just knowing that I was able to play a part in that is really exciting. And being able to just help people read Tolkien is just like really fun for me.
Well, let's hone on the Silmarillion real quick. I was just talking with a professor at Hillsdale College a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how, despite being someone who teaches great books online, he's never been able to finish the Silmarillion, and essentially we joke that it reads like Leviticus at times. Like,
it does.
What is it? I mean, obviously, if you've read it 4 times, you've managed to find a way to groove on it and figure out what it's about. I read it beginning cover to cover like 2 years ago, and I think I understood the majority of it, but I definitely got lost in a lot of the details, because there's entire times where an entire person's life is summarized in a paragraph and never brought up again. There's a lot to that book. What is that experience like, hosting that book club, like, specifically?
Well, so there's one problem with, I mean, I wouldn't say there's a problem because the Silmarillion is perfect, but there's one chapter, and the entire chapter is just a description of a map, and I feel like it's kind of like right in the middle of the book, and it is so boring, and it was so hard to get past it. But honestly, if you're reading the Silmarillion and you start to get bored, I would just say just skim that area and then just keep going, because you want to finish the whole book. And then once you fall in love with the story, then you go back and then you can like dive deeper into it. And that's what I feel like I've done every time I've read it. But it can be difficult at times, especially the first chapter, because there is just name after name, and it's hard to keep track of everything. But really, if you take notes, and if you even have like a friend or two that you're reading with, and just having someone to discuss it with, I think helps a lot. And that's why I like our book club so much, because people can kind of bounce ideas off of each other or remind each other who's who.
Have you gotten those same kind of like feelings of just like light bulb turning on that you get from Lord of the Rings with the Silmarillion, or is it that a little bit harder?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot. I don't want to like spoil anything, but there's one character towards the end of the Silmarillion he like represents both immortal and mortal, and then he goes forth on behalf of like all of humanity to the god. They're not like gods, but to the Valar, who are kind of like god beings, to like plead on behalf of them. And I just saw him as like such a Christ figure that it was really exciting. And I was at church, and they were reading part of scripture that was just about like Jesus kind of like ascending as a sign of hope or something like that. And it reminded me of this character. And I just like had all of these light bulbs going off while I'm like sitting in church. So stuff like that is really exciting. And then there's a lot of times when just the way Tolkien writes, you're reading it and you're like, this is just a lot like the Bible, even just like the way that he writes, the style and the tone. So a lot of it is just really cool. And you can tell that he has such a vast knowledge of scripture and he really gets it. I don't know. I just wish I was as smart as him.
Yeah. Do you know if the Silmarillion was loosely the way he wanted it? Because I know his son edited it after he died, so it was never clear to me if the book was presented the way he had originally envisioned it.
I'm not sure. I know that his son Christopher was his chosen person to take over his works, and I know they had done a lot of work together before he passed away. And I think if there was anyone who could have done the Silmarillion other than Tolkien, then it was Christopher. So I feel like I really trusted him, and I feel like he did a really good job. I don't know exactly how Tolkien might have wanted to arrange it, because I don't think Tolkien would have ever finished it. If he would have lived another 50 years, he would have just been revising and revising. Like, it just, to him, I think it was something so important and so vast that I don't think he could have ever finished it on his own.
Well, there was a point, like when Lord of the Rings was published, that he was trying to convince the publisher to put a version of it out there. So I could see a different variation of that having come out in the 50s had his publisher not taken one look at it and said, "This isn't going to sell."
Yeah. I'm kind of glad, because I feel like him being able to work on it for a lot longer made it a little bit. It probably wouldn't have been as wonderful as it is now. I don't know that for sure, but I'm just guessing there.
Yeah, it probably got more attention just because it was a posthumous release than because it would have necessarily had it come out just the time Lord of the Rings came out.
Well, it's crazy, yeah, because people like Tolkien would talk about the Silmarillion a lot in letters and just like reference it all the time to his fans. And I just can't imagine being a Tolkien fan in like the 60s and him being like, oh yeah, this is in the Silmarillion, but you don't have the Silmarillion. That would have driven me insane. I actually have this book, I think it's called Tolkien and the Silmarillion, where it's this guy interviewing him, and he's kind of talking about what is in the Silmarillion, and it's so interesting because this was written when it wasn't even out yet. So it was really all fans had. So we live in a wonderful time now where we have so much from him and from Christopher and stuff like that that's been edited.
Well, imagine living in 1945 and not knowing what Numenor is when you're reading the Space Trilogy.
So sad.
It's like I think he actually adds a note. Lewis actually adds a note in the introduction to that hideous strength. Ask Tolkien what Numenor is, and then Lord of the Rings didn't come out for a decade later, and then it took like another 3 decades for Silmarillion to come out. So
that's crazy. I can't imagine. That would be so sad.
Just sending Tolkien aggressive letters asking him what it is, and just like, the book's gonna come out eventually.
Yeah, they're like, tell me now. Well, I read that at one point, somehow, I guess this is just how things were back then, people had his home telephone number, and so people would be calling him like from the US, so it would be the middle of the night. So they would just be like people calling him in the middle of the night, asking him stuff, and like that would drive me insane. I don't know how he handled it.
Oh man, I mean that was the age when everyone's their phone numbers were publicly listed. That sounds like a nightmare and a half. And
absolutely.
I know at some point he actually had to get his phone changed because you couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah. People just went nuts over his works because they're so good.
Oh man, so I guess to switch into the more serious line of discussion, we are now officially about a year out from Amazon's Tolkien or Lord of the Rings, and I've seen you talk a little bit about it. I get the sense a lot of people are very apprehensive about it, especially in light of the fact that the OneRing.net has gone insane in the past 3 months, and they basically decided they're going to ride the whims of political topicality to be polite about it. What do you think about what's going on with the show, and what kind of hope do you have for that?
I would say that I'm cautiously optimistic. I feel like they are spending so much money and putting so much into this that I don't think that they will screw it up too bad. I'm sure it's not going to be perfect because no adaptation really ever is. But I was a little more apprehensive. I've listened to a couple episodes of the Tolkien Road podcast, which I love, and they had a lot of insight into it that I think made me a little bit less nervous. But I'm sure it's not going to be perfect. But once I saw that image that they released, they released a promo image a couple weeks ago. Once I saw that image, I was freaking out, and just it made me really excited. So I don't really see the point in being grumpy or angry about it right now because nothing has actually happened. If they end up doing anything crazy with this show, I guess I'll be irritated at that point. But for now, I'm just going to have a little hope and just be a little excited.
Honestly, that's the best attitude I've heard about it, because there's a lot of people that are automatically that have automatically written the multi-billion-dollar show off and said there's no chance it's gonna be good. They're like, oh, they've ruined it already. I'm like, we've got a single image of the show,
and the image looks amazing. When I saw the two trees in that, I just I was in my kitchen making my kids lunch, and then I looked at my phone and I saw it, and I was so flustered for half an hour after I saw it, because I was like, the trees of Valinor, what? And because the shows, they're not really supposed to be in the show, so I'm assuming that's a prologue. But it just I was so frazzled, and it just got me really excited about the show, and it's kind of been fun to watch all of the Lord of the Rings fans try and be like, who's that person in the picture? So I don't know. I don't see the point in getting angry about something that hasn't happened yet. So I'll just be irritated later if I need to be.
Yeah, I mean, I've said for a while now, if you wanted that, I've assumed that the first episode of the show is going to have a prologue, kind of like the one we got in the Jackson trilogy, where it cuts back to the War of Wrath and kind of explains the events of the First Age up until that point, because you kind of need an info to explain what the heck is happening at this point in the timeline, especially for anyone that doesn't know what's happening.
They're going to need they're going to need to hold your hand and lead you through what's going on, because most people would have probably no idea what's happening if they just hadn't read any Tolkien and just turned on the show. And they need to make sure that the average person will enjoy it if they want to make their money back or whatever. Which
makes me think we're probably going to see Morgoth in some capacity, which that's insane if we actually do get a full appearance of Morgoth. And I've said for a while now, if they really wanted to go make fans go crazy, they should just do constant have their human and elf characters in the show reminisce about the events of the First Age, and then just do individual episodes where they narrate Beren and Luthien or Children of Huron just as flashbacks, and that would heal so much acrimony coming out of it right now.
Right. I hope that they don't touch Beren and Luthien, though. That makes me really nervous, because I know it was so close to Tolkien's heart, and it was so important to him. So I feel like they kind of have to earn that if they want to do it, because I don't trust them yet. And so if they screw up Beren and Luthien, it's you're dead to me kind of thing. So if you mess up other stuff, okay. But Beren and Luthien, that's just, Tolkien's gonna come back and haunt you. You can't do that. I don't know.
And they'll deserve it too.
Yeah, so they definitely, I would hope that they don't even have the rights to Baron and Luthien, but I don't know, because I thought they only had the rights to a really specific subsection of stuff, but then they go and put the two trees of Valinor in their promo picture, so like I have no idea what's going on. But I also am not paying too much attention to all of the rumors that are coming out, because they're not really confirmed, and so I don't know, I'm kind of busy, I don't have time for rumors.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of just excited to just wait and see. I don't want the show to be ruined for me before it even happens.
Yeah, if anything good comes out of this, it's going to be that we're going to get to talk about Tolkien and the cultural zeitgeist again. Have you seen an uptick in like interest among your group about Tolkien ever since this show kind of got people getting talked about? Or
I think so. I mean, it's hard to know. I feel like ever since I started, I've my blog and everything has been growing, and I feel like there is kind of a resurgence of interest in Tolkien ever since. I know that they were kind of trying to time, like whenever Game of Thrones ended. I didn't really watch that, but I know that they were kind of trying to capture that interest in like fantasy, sword fighting, whatever, and kind of carry that into the Lord of the Rings series. It's taken a lot longer than I thought it would, but I know like COVID happened and everything like that, and I think they do really want it to be good, so I guess that's probably why it's taking so long. But I do feel like people are kind of starting to get into it, and I'm sure once the first episode premieres, there will be probably like a huge increase of people thinking about Tolkien or talking about him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the books are kind of, they never go away. And like they're never out of print. They're never out of stock at Barnes and Noble. Like they're always going to be kind of semi-permanent aspects of discussion, and doesn't seem like anyone's ever stopped being interested in them. Although if anything good does necessarily come out of the show, I've said before, I hope it's that we finally get another Hobbit meal at Denny's. But
yes, did you go there when they were doing that?
I did. I think I did it once when the Desolation of Smaug came out, and I got really mad when I didn't bring it back for Five Armies. And
oh, like, that's funny. Yeah, I remember going there and they had like Radagast red velvet pancakes or something, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Don't question it. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear the story of the farmer maggot soup when Tolkien went to Holland?
Yes, yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah,
everyone was like grossed out by it or something like that.
Well, it was they in Holland, maggot doesn't mean the same thing it means in English, so they thought, oh, farmer maggot will make his mushroom soup. Mm-hmm. And I had a Professor Fulton Brown, who from the University of Chicago, on last year, and she teaches Tolkien at there, and she brought that story up, and I've loved that ever since I heard it. But
right, I was thinking I should make some maggot soup for my Hobbit party just to see how everyone feels about it. Like,
it's just a can of mushroom soup. It's
right.
I actually like mushroom soup, and I've gotten weird looks for that. But I'm like, I know.
No, mushrooms are great.
I know, it's like my most Hobbit-like characteristic is I just like mushrooms.
Yes, I've made the mistake of, I don't know what's wrong with me, but there have been a couple of times where I've had a friend over and I'm like, oh, they're a big Tolkien fan. I'm sure they like mushrooms. So then I'll like make a mushroom dish for dinner, and then they like hate mushrooms. And I'm like, but I thought you liked Tolkien. and then I'm like, oh, okay. I need to take a couple of steps back and remember not everyone likes mushrooms. It was like very embarrassing.
So speaking of the Tolkien party, I know you're currently in preparation for your yearly one. How is that coming along?
This is going to be my 10th Hobbit party, so I'm like trying to make it really, really awesome, and just prepare everything ahead of time. I'm really excited, but at the same time, I feel like I've got it down now. I serve pretty much the same food every year. We just do a lot of like hearty, like stew and stuff like that. And I'm really excited. I'm just decorating the house right now. I put up a bunch of stuff in my basement just this morning. So it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, did you do I saw last year you did like the Shelob, like children's maze.
I do that every year. That's my favorite thing to do. So we do Shelob's Web, and I give each kid a foam sword, which is Sting, and then a glow stick, which is the phial of Galadriel.
Oh.
So they're going through like this, like Sam. And I usually use white crepe paper, and I'll just pick a room, and like I used our mudroom because there's a door, so I can keep it closed off until the right time. And then I am gonna put like a Frodo plushie toy in there or something. So you have to rescue Frodo, and then like I'll turn the lights off and make it real dark in there. But this year we actually have a stairway going up from our basement, like up to the backyard. So I'm gonna make those the stairs of Cirith Ungol. And then I'm going to do the spider web in our basement. And like the way our house is formatted is like you have to go through it. And so you're going to have to go through the spider web. You're either going to come down the stairs or go up the stairs. I haven't thought about that. But it's stuff like that is just so fun for me. And I think the kids have fun. They don't totally know what's going on, but they love smashing through a spider web.
How many of the parents bring their kids along to the party?
So right now I'm like my RSVPs, I've got 30 adults coming and 30 kids. So probably half of those adults are like single people, but then some of my friends have like 7 kids. So yeah, so it's like whenever I usually do 2 days of parties. So there's a Friday night, which is usually like more of the adults come, and it's a lot more fun for me. Like there's a lot more like, I don't know, just hanging out and having fun. And then Saturday is usually like more family day. A lot of the kids come, and so we do like kids games, and I don't know, it's just like a massive party all weekend kind of. It's so fun.
Oh man, I think I've been following you for like a year and a half now, but I love seeing all the photos that come out of it. It's the most wonderful thing, and even just the food that comes out of it. It's just, it looks amazing. I've had to ask you. I think I've asked you like a couple times on the timeline just for your recipes because they all look so good. So.
Oh, thanks. I'll try and make a blog post or something. I don't usually use recipes, so I kind of just look at things. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, a lot of it's obvious. It's like finger food and veggies and stuff like that. But it looks amazing the way it's presented. So I'm always immensely jealous whenever I see the photos of it. So, but yeah, you want to? I don't know if I have any other huge questions for you specifically, but do you want to like shout out all your things online so people can kind of find you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So everything I do can be found at teawithtolkien.com. And we've got our book club going on. There's a book club page on there. I also have a shop where I have like stickers and a planner, as well as I just released our Silmarillion guide ebook, and like a bunch of other handful of resources on there. And those are really the main things. And oh yes, I also have a podcast. I forget about that. But I am going to be doing like blog posts or book club podcast episodes. So that's pretty much everything.
Sure. I think this episode will be going up on like September 3rd. Could people still have time to join your Lord of the Rings reading club if they want to?
Yeah, totally. So each podcast for each month will drop on the 1st of the month. And then we'll spend the whole rest of the month discussing that book. So if they just want to read book 1 of Lord of the Rings as fast as they can, then they can join in, and it'll be a lot of fun.
All right, cool. I appreciate getting to kind of talk to you about all this. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
The AntiSocial Network is a Groupthink Productions podcast. Editing, producing, and hosting are by Tyler Hummel. Artwork by Crystal Cowley. And original music was composed by Melissa Lafira and the late Dan Smolla. Like, subscribe, and please let us know what you think about the show in the comments below if you'd like to see anyone interesting be a guest on the show. Thank you for listening.